Hello and welcome to our July 2024 update, and thank you all for joining us today. Okay, so for those who don't know me, I'm Peter Mellor and I've been involved with Super Concepts for over 15 years. I was previously a customer success specialist but have now moved into the role of Manager, Partnerships and Growth. Today we'll be joined by our Product Design Manager, Reese Hopper. For something a little different, we also have a special guest in Craig Stone, who is our General Manager, Quality and Technical Services. As you would no doubt be aware, we have been working tirelessly to continue to build, strengthen and improve SuperMate. We are very pleased to be able to share that BDO, one of the nation's leading accounting and advisory firms, has selected the upgraded SuperMate as their SMSF software provider. We believe this shows confidence in the ability of SuperMate and are excited to show you a small example of why BDO have made this decision. Craig Stone will provide a review of the May budget announcements and the anticipated effects, and Reese Hopper will provide a demonstration of a few of the recent improvements to SuperMate. So I'd now like to welcome Craig Stone to provide a review of the May budget announcements and changes that have come into force from 1 July. Over to you, Craig.
Thanks, Pete. I appreciate that. I've been at Super Concepts for less than a year, and I look up to people like Peter with all the experience at Super Concepts to learn from. But today's focus in amongst the 2024 compliance release is looking at the federal budget and the implications that superannuation and SMSFs particularly will have had from the budget, as well as any recent changes that have happened from 1 July 2024. So we won't take away from Reese and Peter with the focus on compliance release, but we thought it was appropriate to be able to share some good background knowledge as to what's recently changed and to bring everyone up to speed. So I'll go on to the next slide here. For those of you who were paying attention at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time on a Tuesday night in May, the 2024 budget was handed down and there was a big focus on cost of living pressures, a big focus on building more homes for Australians, and also a big focus on investing in a future made in Australia. And pretty boring budget actually from a super fund and self-managed super fund particularly focus. But there was two elements which I'll just highlight just now, which had an implication for superannuation strategy. And for those of you who are on the call, you may well have focused on this as well, given our focus on superannuation. But tax cuts were confirmed for every Australian taxpayer, as well as there's some measures that were announced around supporting wages and wages growth. So given the changes to superannuation rates for SG coming into effect this July and in future years to get us up to the 12% rate, that's going to help increase the amount of money going into superannuation, particularly self-managed super funds. So just to do a little bit of a summary here, you can find some more details on that website up the top there, budget.com.au, and I've just stolen a couple of pictures from there. They paint 1,000 words, but basically showing you that if you have a taxable income in the ranges off to the left-hand side, then you will anticipate some tax savings annually of those numbers that are in red off to the right-hand side. So for those lower taxable income levels of 45,000 or less, you could expect a tax change, refund increase of up to $800. For those middle income earners, 45,000 to 135, you can expect from 800 to about 3,700, and then above that, 135 up to 190, which is a new tax threshold, you could expect around about 3,700 to 4,500. And for anyone that's earning income of 190,000 plus, then your tax rates will change and you'll get a tax refund, additional tax refund or tax rebate of just over $4,500. So that is summarised in this little table that I've put together here, showing the current tax rates and thresholds, and then the changes that will apply from the 1st of July just gone. So anyone in that top marginal tax bracket paying 47% won't start paying that until $190,000 taxable income. And those who are at the lower tax rates, you can anticipate 16% tax, not 19%. So the other changes are there showing for you. So pretty boring, actually, in the budget sense from a superannuation or self-managed super fund perspective. Having a look at the annual returns, which I know Reece is going to be having a look at in a bit more detail again. From an accounting and tax and administration perspective, there's not really that much changing. But the changes that have had been announced by the ATO, there's a fair bit of work behind the scenes, I understand, from a software development perspective. But just two changes that we've picked up this year is the ATO, for some reason, has decided to include a tax agent signature box for the capital loss schedule. And that's something which I don't see much use of, because they're saying in circumstances where the capital loss schedule is going to be lodged by itself. Otherwise, the tax agent signature box that normally applies across the whole tax return will cover that capital loss schedule. And then one of the focus of today with Reece drilling into the trust income schedule, which has now been included in the SuperMate program. The ATO has announced that every single trust that has received income needs to have a separate page outlining all of the components, which is a lot of work behind the scenes, and you can't just do a summary of that income. So that's the major changes when it comes to the annual returns. And I thought I'll use up a couple of minutes just to go through a few changes that have happened recently, and some that we expect to change, be announced in the near future. So a couple of items: NALE changes and $3 million cap, which has received a lot of discussion and lobbying of late. We'll have a look at those, and then some other items that we were hoping might get mentioned that haven't just yet been talked about. So non-arm's length expenditure changes. If you have a self-managed super fund that is entering into related party transactions and you are not being charged the market rate or arm's length value, then the ATO is going to charge you 45% as a tax on that difference, on twice the difference. It was proposed to be 5 times the difference, but that's been pulled back to twice the difference. So if your shortfall is $1,000 because you're getting a discount related party accounting firm, and you have $1,000 shortfall, then you could expect to pay 45% on $2,000. So basically, the tax will be just under $1,000 on that shortfall. So it's interesting how there's a whole lot of work that's been done in that. I don't see that becoming a very big issue, but nonetheless, the rules have finally come into pass on the 1st of July. The other discussion point which we're getting a lot of with our clients is a $3 million cap, otherwise known as Division 296. It's still currently before the Senate. There's a couple of issues that have been raised across the industry, taxing of unrealised gains, as well as not indexing that $3 million cap. So they're two big issues which are being discussed and negotiated in the Parliament. But there is anticipation of an election being called, and if that is the case, then potentially this bill will lapse and Division 296 might be applicable in a couple of years' time, but not 1 July 25 like they're thinking. So watch this space. We'll give an update as soon as we have heard anything. Just wanted to note also that there's been no progress on legacy pensions. A couple of older super funds that have a defined benefit fund pension being paid in there. We were hoping that that might be changed, but that's had no word on it as of today, as well as the Australian super fund definition. If there's any members of the super fund trustees that are travelling overseas, there's a 2-year window. We're hoping that might get pushed out to 5, given the global workforce that we've got at the moment, but nothing on that at this point. The other major thing, which I'll just finish off with, is the ATO is keen to make sure that all trustees and by extension auditors are looking carefully at assets and making sure that they're valued at their current market values. They sent out a letter recently to about 16,500 funds where they've analysed the annual returns and the financial statements, showing that particular questions haven't been revalued over the last 3 years, which seems extraordinary to me. So bet your bottom dollar, the ATO will be looking at those particular 16,500 funds. And if that answer is the same for the fourth year running, they'll be looking to have a chat. That's it in a nutshell. I'll hand back to Peter, but there is some time for questions at the end. So I'll wait forward to any questions that people might have. Peter, back to you.
Thanks, Craig. I'd think that tax cuts are always welcome. I know that I'm a fan of them for myself. So, moving along, I'd now like to welcome Reese Hopper to demonstrate some of the recent improvements to SuperMate. Over to you, Reese.
Thank you, Peter. My part of the webinar is I'm going to cover off the SuperMate demo. During that demo, I'm going to talk about the trust income schedule, the new activity statement lodgement feature we have in SuperMate, the Macquarie account opening service, and a couple of processing and reconciliation improvements. As Craig mentioned, the ATO's brought out a new income trust schedule that is required to be lodged for any entities that have received distributions from a trust. So that's listed trusts, ETFs, managed funds, anything within a platform, related party unit trusts. It's required for SMSFs. In relation to SMSFs, it's required if there's a figure in the gross trust distributions. So section B 11M is a label in the SMSF annual return. If there's a figure in there, you need the trust income schedule. When it comes to what's in the income trust schedule, the trust income schedule, is that there's a page per trust account that receives revenue. And the way that we identify this in SuperMate is on the chart of accounts, if on the revenue account for the trust, if the trust income is set to yes, and there's revenue for the year, it'll receive a page in the trust income schedule. And what I mean by receives a page is the ATO's requirement that every trust has its revenue declared on a separate page. So if you have 150 trusts within an SMSF, I know that's a bit of a bit stretch, you'd be required to have 150 pages. Now the ATO forms, it does go up to, it does allow 150 pages. If you have more than 150, the last page is just a consolidated one. So you'd have to list the first 149 out, and then the remaining you consolidate into one page. When it comes to when you have produced the trust income schedule and you want to review it, compare it to validate the figures in the trust income schedule, I do not recommend using the SMSF annual return. I've got the SMSF annual return here on the left, and the trust income schedule that we produce is on the right. And you can see here that you can't really see any figures on the trust income schedule that appears on the SMSF annual return. And the main reason is the SMSF annual return obviously has all the income for the fund, whereas the trust income schedule has a page per trust. So if we're looking here on the SMSF annual return, there's no capital gain for this fund. It's listed as 0, even though there's capital gains here, and that's because the fund had capital losses. Gross trust distributions $1,085. This trust had $3,255. The reason for this difference is that when it comes to trust distribution, if it's foreign, it ends up in D. If it's capital gain, it ends up in A. If it's tax deferred or tax free, it doesn't actually appear in the SMSF annual return in the income section because you don't pay tax on tax free or tax deferred income. Also, if you have multiple trusts, you'd have to add up these pages to even get close to what is in M. So I highly recommend not using the SMSF annual return to try and reconcile the trust income schedule. Instead, we do have a report that is called the trust distribution breakdown. It's the order of the trust in both reports, in the income schedule and the distribution breakdown report, they are in the same order. So it makes it easy when you are comparing. And you can see here for this Waypoint trust, the 3255, that's the net cash distribution, the share of income for non-primary production is here in the taxable amount. The capital gains section, you can easily figure out here, 2,000 discount. Here's the discount, and then the capital gains is the gross capital gains less the discount, and the foreign income. You can see the two figures in this column. So yeah, just reiterating that if you are trying to reconcile what's in the trust income schedule or review it, use the trust distribution breakdown report to do the comparison. Before I show SuperMate, I'll just go through a bit more troubleshooting with this report. And based on some of the tickets I've seen, if the trust income schedule is not producing in SuperMate, the first question I would ask, the first thing I'd look at is the trust income schedule included in your report suites? We did add the trust income schedule to the system defined trust income schedule, so the one that we maintain. But if you have any custom report suites, the trust income schedule does need to be added to it. We've also seen some errors where there's some validation errors being produced saying, hey, the trust income schedule is not being produced. Well, I'm getting this error saying the trust income schedule is not being produced. And it's because the annual return wasn't included in the report suite. So make sure that if you're getting that error, either make sure you have the annual return if you want it produced, or if you don't want the annual return in that report suite, remove the trust income schedule. The next troubleshooting, if the trust income schedule is being produced, but you're missing trusts from the schedule, go to the revenue account, make sure that the revenue account is flagged for trust income. Otherwise, it's not going to appear. If you are expecting a trust income schedule and it's not being produced, check section B11M of the annual return. If that is 0, it's, as I mentioned earlier, the trust income schedule is not going to get created because there's no requirement if the gross trust distribution label is 0. If it is 0 and you're expecting a figure, just double check what the trust distribution amounts are. If the trust income is solely foreign income, capital gains, tax deferred or tax free income, then your gross trust distributions label in the annual return is going to be 0. And then lastly, bit of troubleshooting. Was your financial year closed prior to our June release? This really only relates to wind-ups. I've seen a few tickets come in saying, hey, I'm getting this error about the trust income schedule. What's this about? And if the year was closed back in April, so it was a wind-up, wound it up in April, sent it off to audit in April, but you're just holding on to lodge it now, well, the trust income schedule was released in June. You just have to regenerate the report answers to make sure that trust income schedule has figures in it. Okay, I'm going to jump into SuperMate, just to show you where the trust income schedule is and what it looks like. So just going to switch. So in the end of year section, 2024 annual return, where all the where all the SMSF returns are. Down the bottom with the other schedules, you do get the trust income schedule. This is obviously different to the report. In the report, we only include figures that had an amount, whereas on the screen we've got the trust income schedule and it looks exactly like what the paper form would look like. So you have all the fields are included, even zero amounts. Gives you the ability to go in, and if you needed to change something, you can go change some figures around. This is the in-screen version. The PDF report will look like this. This is how the paper form looks as distributed from the ATO. So we use the same formatting for ours. Same with the declaration. It looks exactly like the schedule that the ATO distributes. When it comes to each trust amount, we only include, we've created as a report, and we only include figures or labels that have a figure. So that's why on this report there's only about 10 items, whereas on the SuperMate's screen there was multiple items. That's the trust income schedule that's just been released. The next feature I wanted to chat about is the activity statements. You can now lodge activity statements in SuperMate by SBR. So that means you don't have to jump onto the tax portal and lodge the activity statements through the portal. I should point out that in our classic version, you've always been able to lodge activity statements. Back 10 years ago when I was an accountant and using SuperMate, I used to use SuperMate to lodge the activity statements. The difference between classic and SuperMate is it looks a lot better. It's more user-friendly. The schedules actually look like the ATO forms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly jump into SuperMate. The first thing you'll notice now that we have released the feature is on the site overview section, the activity statement appears in the requiring lodgement section. So you can see here that I have 15 overdue activity statements, 13 due soon, and 33 due for the 2024 financial year. If I select that item, I can go to the activity statement screen. The other way to navigate to the screen is on the compliance menu, activity statements. You'll notice that at the top, there's some instructions about connecting to the ATO via SBR to be able to lodge. I will point out that if you already are lodging SMSF annual returns or payment summaries using SuperMate, you're already connected, so you don't have to follow the instructions at the top. It should already be, you should already be connected. And one of the ways you can tell is that you have an ATO status of new or progress further. I'll also point out that we do download these statements automatically if you have opted into the service. If you jump into the screen and there's a notification up here saying we're not automatically downloading the statements for you, all you need to do is select automatically download, and the statements will start downloading every month automatically for you. You can also change this to the date range, change the date range to a quarterly amount. So we go here, search. Once the date range has been changed to a 3-month maximum, you can select the download all. And when you go down, select download all, SuperMate will contact the ATO and try and download all the activity statements. Now, I did point out the ATO status before. Right now in my list, all I have is new, but we also have that ATO status actually comes from the ATO, and there's four main statuses, and they are unknown. If you have a status of unknown, it means that the activity statement hasn't been downloaded from the ATO yet, and the access button should actually be a download button, giving you a chance to download the activity statement. New means that the activity statement has been downloaded, but it hasn't been lodged yet. Then there's two other statuses. The first one is lodged, which means it was sent to the ATO, but the ATO hasn't processed it yet. And the last status is processed, which means the ATO has processed the lodgement. Pretty self-explanatory statuses. If you have an ATO status of unknown, but when you're selecting download, it's not actually downloading the activity statement, what you do need to do is check the configuration that's against the fund. If I jump into the Kindler Super Fund, go details, so fund details configuration. You need to check to see if it's registered for GST, the IAS frequency, the BAS frequency. So you do need to make sure that this ATO reporting is up to date for the activity statements to be downloaded from the ATO. Jumping back to the activity statement screen. I'm going to jump into the Kindler's BAS. I got a BAS form D. When I jump in, what you will notice, as I spoke about before, it's not like the classic screen. It's like the SuperMate annual return screen where the statement actually looks like the form. Now there is a slight difference. For example, when it comes to options, we provide you with the options to select, and then the relevant fields appear based on what option you select. Whereas the ATO form has, here's option 1 on the left, option 2 on the right, option 3 down below. And you can see all options at once. We've cleaned it up a bit where you only see the relevant fields, just to remove that confusion. So you can go through, select the different options, check to see what's been provided. You can also, you can also change the options, change what's selected. In this screen, we also have the ability to generate a worksheet, and a worksheet is helpful for the accountant to view what the activity statement looks like. So it's got what the activity statement is, all the different labels that would be involved, and then a notes to it where it provides a reconciliation to the BAS statement. Here you can see this is G11, total G11. If I jump down to G13, it provides the calculation for G13. So that G13 should reconcile back to 44.46. And if I have a look, it gives the GST amounts. I can also reset the values. So if I jumped in here and I put a whole heap of different numbers in, and then I've gone, actually, what were the original figures? What were the SuperMate calculated figures? What's the figures provided by the ATO? I can just select reset value, and it'll go back through and it'll reset the values back to what they originally were. While that's resetting, just I'll close this one. Yep. So you can see here, reset it back to $100. You can also produce a declaration to be signed by the trustee. And this declaration, it's a more beautiful version of the worksheet where it only includes the required information that the trustee needs to see. So we found with trustees and what people want to provide to trustees, less is better. So it does have the simple GSC and activity statement figures. It has a signing section. I'll show you a different one later on where it has payment details on it. It also does provide all the other details, but it does provide you with the opportunity just to send the first page. If you only want to give the trustees limited information, you can just send the front page. And so this can get signed off. Before you lodge it, you can validate the annual return and obviously save and lodge the activity statement in this screen. This is what a BAS looks like. If I jump back to the activity statement screen and I'll navigate to different one. But Loving Super Fund has ISB. Once again, I have options for the IS. The difference between this one and the BAS is it's a payable. So I can select the payment details. The payment references do get downloaded when the ATO sends the information. Also, when I generate the trustee declaration, the payment detail is on the bottom of the report. I'll also quickly point out that we have received feedback that people like this report, this declaration, but they don't typically get trustees to sign the declaration. So we are going to put in the ability to produce this as a activity statement summary and remove the declaration. So you can still send them the details and say, here's the payment, the payment reference, and not ask them to sign it. Okay. Now back to my PowerPoint. That was the activity statement features. Very useful. It's going to speed up a lot of time when you go to lodge the activity statements, because you can do it all in SuperMate and all the figures are in SuperMate. You don't have to worry about any user mistakes from trying to transfer data from an activity statement report produced from SuperMate into the ATO portal. So it's a lot quicker. The last major feature I'm going to talk about is the Macquarie account opening service. And this is a quite exciting service where we've heard in the industry that there has been some trouble opening Macquarie bank accounts due to AFSL changes. This feature allows you to open Macquarie CMA and CMA Accelerator accounts from SuperMate. Couple of clicks of a button, it pre-fills the application form, and then it also sets up the data feed for you. So it not only streamlines the application process, but it also sets up the data feed. So I'm going to jump to SuperMate now. All right. Now, while I'm logging back here, I'll point out that the first thing you need to do is go to the integrations provider section, and you do need to make sure that the service is turned on. The next thing you need to do is go into the bank account application screen and configure your account authorities. So this will be the Macquarie login details that you have with Macquarie. So we get you to select the Macquarie Institute, just because we are working on other bank accounts. But you put in Macquarie, first name, surname, email, your company name, your company code, your representative code, and then you can choose a default. So I know a few sites have multiple Macquarie logins, so you can set a default. Once you've set up your account authority, you can just jump back into the screen, select open bank account. Select the open bank account, choose the super fund, choose whether you want to open an accelerator account at the same time, and then you choose what account authority is. So obviously I only have one. Tick the terms and conditions. I'll quickly point out that we do give warnings for people if a fund already has a bank account application, just so you don't double up. When I select submit, what it's going to do is it's going to create the application form. It'll kick off the process, but it also, when you do select submit right now, Macquarie does send back a bank account that will be used once the account is set up, and we use these account details to set up the data feed for you. So there's no need to set up a data feed. You can, well, if you've kicked off the process in the Macquarie system and you get to a certain way, you can save it, save the form, and you can come back to it. And this is what the resume button does. If I select the resume button on this one, I can see here that it's open up the application to the review and submit section. I still have a few details which I need to enter. So identification, driver's license numbers, occupations. Once I complete all that detail, I can select submit. The form goes off to the trustee to review and approve. If I jump back to SuperMate and I open up this application, I can see that this one has progressed enough that it's gone off to the client. The client's done their section. I want to see where this one's up to because it's not complete. And you can see here that 2 of the trustees still need to provide their identification, and we haven't supplied Macquarie the trustee. So once we provide those documents, you can upload it, select submit, then the bank account can be used. That is basically the Macquarie feature. Quite handy, speeds up the setting up of accounts. It reduces a lot of the friction. Now, the last thing I was going to talk about is a few little items here and there that we've done just to speed up processing and reconciliation within SuperMate. The first one I want to talk about in the end of year section, audit and signing. When I do produce all the different report suites that go out to the client or that you provide to the auditor or you use for internal review, that report suite will now, with a PDF, will now have bookmarks. So we bookmark all the different reports. It's quite handy for, if you're sending off to a client and they want to quickly jump to a certain report, or if you're reviewing the PDF, you can quickly just click through the different reports to get to where you want. The next item that I was going to show, we've brought in a dividend DRP reinvestment flag for for manually processed distributions. So obviously when you have a corporate action, you can open up a corporate action and you can choose whether the corporate action is cash or DRP, and the system automatically calculates the DRP and the number of units, distributes all the different bits of income. Whereas if I go add revenue and I'm processing a trust distribution for a private unit trust or something that's not widely held where we don't get corporate actions for, we do have the dividend reinvestment plan button. So you can say, okay, well, I've got revenue on this date and I'm going to reinvest and get these number of units. So it's quite handy. We've added the dividend reinvestment plan to dividend distribution, foreign dividend, and other. So anywhere where it makes sense to have the DRP option. The last small feature I'm going to show is the notes section. So obviously we had that in Classic and we've brought it into Web, and we've made it a tiny bit better in Web, where you can have fund notes where I want to write some review points on the accountant finishing a fund, the reviewer, and I want to leave some notes for the reviewer. I can leave it all in SuperMate. So I can select add, general note. And I can add some review points in, select save. You can also attach it to a member. You can add a note that's attached to a member. Where this is typically used is it's this note. Well, for a general note, it just shows up in the general section, so you can create general notes attached to a member. We do have a different note type called a sticky note, and I can create a sticky note where it'll appear in every screen. So if you have a client that's not paying their fees, or if you had a client that passed away, you can say so-and-so passed away. So when people jump into the fund, it's front and center, and they know either not to work on the fund if they haven't paid their fees, or if a person's passed away, it's front and center. So you know that not to produce letters or reports that addresses the deceased member. With the notes, if it is a sticky note and you do attach it to a member, where this is applicable is when it'll show up. It won't show up on every screen. Where it will show up is member related screens. So it'll appear for when you're processing a lump sum for a client or a rollout. It'll just give some instructions about, making sure that you follow a certain set of instructions for that member. Now, you can still have general, you can have sticky notes that do relate for a member. That does appear, but it's just leave the member section free, and you can put the member in there. So that way you can have it, okay, yeah, that relates to Jack Webb. I'll also point out that you only can have one sticky note per fund. And the reason for that is we didn't want 5 sticky notes running down the page, and then the top half of the screen is filled with sticky notes, and then the bottom half, you have to scroll all the way down to get to the actual relevant information. Okay, that's notes. So just to recap, the demo today covered off the ATO's new trust income schedule, SBR logic of activity statements in SuperMate, the ability to open Macquarie bank accounts, and I covered off bookmarking, DRPs, and notes. I've plenty more wonderful features that we have produced over the last few months, but unluckily for me, I only have 35 minutes and I have a million features to go through. So what I'll do is I'll pass it back over to Peter.
Thanks, Reese. So we've got Craig providing a review of the announcements in the May budget, and Reese has shown a number of improvements that have already been introduced to SuperMate. So here you say, wow, that new SuperMate is really cool. How can I get involved? So the basic subscription starts at $11 per fund per month plus GST, which gives you access to all the features like the Macquarie Bank data feed, broker data feeds, registry reconciliations with computer share, link market services and boardroom, Data Hero to read bank statements and create the bank transactions from them, the ability to utilize APIs to provide data to your CRMs, which all reduce the manual intervention and provide you with more time you need to provide outstanding service to your clients. Not only that, but for just an additional $4.75 a month, you can get all of this as well as data feeds from over 100 other banks and financial institutions. In addition, once you subscribe to SuperMate, you become a part of the Super Concepts family, and as such have access to our SMSF education services provided by Craig, who you heard from earlier today. So if you need any further information or would like to investigate why BDO have decided to partner with SuperMate and how we can make your life and the life of your SMSF clients easier, please contact me via the details on the screen. So that's all our information we're going to provide. Now it's over to you. Is there anything that you would like clarification of from what we have discussed today? So don't forget to click on the Q&As in the top of your Teams to submit your question. We've had a couple come through during the conversations. So with the Macquarie opening service, do you need to be a registered advisor? So I'd say that's a question for you, Reese.
No, so you don't need to be a registered advisor. That's one of the benefits of the Macquarie account opening service, is that you can piggyback off our AFSL when setting up the bank account.
Okay, and is it possible to print off that application form to have the client sign it?
You can, to sign it.
Yes, so for your records, so you have records that you have a client signature of requesting that application.
That's a good question. I was going to say yes, you can produce the form from the Macquarie screen. This online application process does also send them an email, so I believe that they'll have to complete the online section that they get emailed, but then you can print off what was submitted.
Okay, well, that'd be useful. A couple of other questions. How long can we still use SuperMate Classic? So that's probably, at this stage, from what I'm aware of, there has nothing been set in stone as to what there's as an end date. So as you'd imagine, given the fact that we have the new setup with the new SuperMate, at some point it will be restricted. But at this stage, I don't think there's been any firm date set in stone as to how that will work or when that will apply. But that's something we can investigate and get back to you. Okay. So any other questions that we're doing from anyone else? How will the ATO view the trust schedule when multiple trusts are all held in a platform asset?
If it's produced from SuperMate as a platform, we can, since the revenue account for the platform is a single account, we just consolidate it and send it off to the ATO as a single page, which is how the ATO has said to do it.
Okay. Cool. And I think we had a few questions being asked. Is with the trust schedule, is that going to be available in SuperMate Classic?
Yes, it's currently available in SuperMate Classic.
Already available there.
It just doesn't look as good. It's what the classic annual return answers screen looks like. It's a bit DOS style looking, whereas the new SuperMate looks exactly like the form. It's easier to adjust, easier to read.
Okay. Cool. Okay, I think that's got most of the questions that we've come through, but I'm sure there's some other questions that are still coming through. We will address all of them and respond via email in the coming weeks, so that you will get an answer to your questions. So at that stage, I think we will sign off. Thank you all once again for joining. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Reese.
Thanks, Peter.
And don't forget,
appreciate it.
Welcome. And don't forget, if you're interested or would like a demonstration that is more specific to the way your business operates, please get in contact. Thank you all very much.